Welcome back to J&J Dynasty. All right, we're moving right along here. Another video here today for you. We're going to do the NFC South this time. Like I said, hopefully we're going to keep it down to 30 minutes or less. We're going to talk about the Buccaneers, the Saints, the Falcons, and the Panthers. And once again, this is for your standard one quarterback PPR dynasty leagues. And so let's get into it right away here. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're going for it again this year. They're going to try and win a Super Bowl for Tom Brady one more time. And so let's start off with Tom Brady. Tom Brady, yay. Dynasty League, I actually just made a fantastic trade. Right before he retired, I traded Jameis Winston for Tom Brady because my team needed a top 10 type quarterback. And Brady puts up the numbers, but he's not ranked as a top 10. So I was just going for the 1 year or 2 year until I could get a solid quarterback. Because when I made the trade back then, nobody was talking about Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts was my #1 quarterback. So I definitely, made a depth move, and I traded Winston for Tom Brady. So I was planning on going in with Tom Brady. Well, about 2 weeks ago or so, a guy he's dismantling his roster. He wanted me to take Mahomes off his hands. Patrick Mahomes, he wanted me to take him off his hands. I had to give him my first round pick and Brady. So Mahomes for Brady and a first rounder. And this team was terrible this year, but it's the most stacked team I have now with Mahomes. And so, I should win the league. Hope to win the league. I'll be in the top 3 for sure. And, it's just deep, 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 deep. But now I have Mahomes instead of Brady, and I gave up, it was Tom Brady basically in a late first round pick. I wound up getting back a first round pick because I had 2-1 also. So I made a trade on 2-1 and swapped some picks and stuff like that. So I got a guy's first round pick next year to replace my pick. But Tom Brady, he was very valuable to me in that situation because it was a win now team. And whether I had him for 1 year or 2 years, I really didn't care. It was a bridge so that way I could find out if Hurts was going to be a good quarterback or if I could trade Hurts for somebody who could be a better quarterback long term. So that was my game plan, and that's where that is. So Tom Brady, definitely love him. You want him this year on your roster. If you can get him cheap. And do that. So let's do that. So let's go right into the tight ends. We'll just say tight ends. You want Gronk. You don't want anybody else. If Gronk stays retired, you don't want anybody else. You just want Gronk. Enough said. You want Gronk as long as Gronk and Brady are playing together. Don't need to say anymore. Let's get to the running backs. Leonard Fournette was a top 5 running back last year. You want him. So pretty much enough said on that. He's getting a little bit longer in the tooth. If I was trading for Fournette, I would, definitely if I was in a win now situation, I would want to trade for Fournette, which would be mean. I'm giving up a late first. I'd probably have to give up a little bit extra just to get Fournette for a win now type situation. You have the Keyshawn Vaughn. He went first round, a lot of picks, a lot of teams last year. Maybe you want to take a shot at him. Maybe you don't, right? They wound up getting White. White is presumably the backup. If Fournette goes down, Fournette usually goes down almost every year. So you probably want to have some shares of him on some leagues, maybe. So I don't know if he's going to be a solid backup or if they're just going to wind up replacing him with a veteran next year anyways. So that remains to be seen. I'm not the highest on White either. So Fournette, but you do want Fournette. So with that being said, let's move right on into their wide receivers. You got Evans and Godwin. Evans is getting long in the tooth, but if you're win now, he's golden, right? He's going to have a big start to the year. He's going to have a big year all the way around. When Godwin does come back, I think that's going to take down Evans's catches a bit. So then, Evans might be somebody you might want to trade by the trade deadline because he's going to have so many catches and things like that. So maybe you can upgrade him with a younger guy. Once Godwin gets in there, he's going to become the #1 wide receiver by default again, which is also going to affect. So, I like Godwin, but he's not going to be there until probably week 6, 8, probably 10. Which gets us into their third wide receiver, a guy who I'm very high on, and I'm picking him up for scraps, which is Russell Gage. I've been picking him up for the last 2 years, knowing about the talent. My biggest concern with him is I've heard stuff about him that he doesn't run crisp routes and stuff like that, but he definitely seems to get open, and he definitely seems to, put up big games when guys actually throw him the ball. Tom Brady lobbied to get him, so Tom Brady's going to throw him the ball. Just like Antonio Brown, he's taking Antonio Brown's rollover. Antonio Brown was startable as a wide receiver 3, but now you have the dynamic of if Gronk is gone, you're going to have extra receptions. If Godwin's going to be down for a while, this year you're going to have extra receptions. So the first part of the year, Russell Gage could be a monster, a sleeper monster. So I'm going out and getting as many shares of Russell Gage as I can. Below that, Scotty Miller, yeah, keep claiming you're the fastest guy in the league. Who cares? You can't catch the ball, you can't get open, doesn't matter. Jalen Darden, I know that they liked him, but he's basically a kick returner. Tyler Johnson, he could be a guy, if he could ever figure it out, he could be dangerous in the league. Apparently he doesn't take it seriously. He doesn't do the nutrition and keep himself right to be able to play. He's got phenomenal hands. He's got phenomenal skills. He's just going to want it. So this is going into his third year, so he probably doesn't want it that bad. So we'll see, but if there's one guy that I would take a flyer on, it would be Tyler Johnson yet. So of all those guys. So I guess that's pretty much it for the Tampa Bay team. Let's roll right on to the Saints. God, all these teams have so many issues this year. I don't know what the deal is. Starting off with quarterback, we got Jameis Winston. He's not Drew Brees anymore, right? So he's coming back, and it sounds like he's perfectly healthy from OTAs and things like that. So I don't have any problem with Winston. Winston is a guy who I think could be a priority backup or, a starter on a bad team. He could be a starter on a great team where he's not going to hurt you and he's just more of like a placeholder. But he was a league winner a couple of years back when he threw for all those touchdowns in Tampa Bay and the interceptions, I might add, and the yards. But so that could be how it breaks down again this year. I don't think so. I think he's going to be a solid quarterback. He looks like he's turning into a solid quarterback as the older he gets here. Which then also brings us into the running back position. We'll start with the running back position. Kamara. What's the suspension going to be, though? That's what we have to worry about, right? So Mark Ingram might be a 2-down back for a couple of games until Kamara gets back, and then he'll revert to just taking some of the load off of Kamara, basically. They brought in a rookie, and everybody's talking him up, but I don't know that he's going to actually be able to take over any significant role until a little bit later on in the season. I can't even remember what his name is. At any rate, he's really not worth it. Is it Abram Smith, something like that. At any rate, so he's a guy who might be a deep flyer for New Orleans, but other than that, the former quarterback Taysom Hill, don't get me started. I don't want a share of him on a roster. I haven't, won't, nothing. Tight end Adam Troutman is a little bit intriguing. It seemed like him and Winston had a little bit of a connection going as far as when Winston was healthy, and Troutman was coming on right before he got hurt. It's time for Troutman to break out, so that could happen this year. So he's a guy who I'm going to have my eye on a little bit. So if you have an extra spot for a tight end, he's definitely not a bad backup, with upside potential, because everybody's been talking about him and Cole Kmet for years. Same thing with Dallas Goedert. Goddard kind of is there now, but so we want to maybe we want to take a shot on Troutman, right? Then we get into the whole mess of the wide receiver situation. Is Michael Thomas or is he not going to play? I heard last year during the middle of the year or before that another wide receiver who had the exact same injury that Thomas did never played again. So, obviously Thomas kind of played last year a little bit. but he really didn't. Is going to be the same thing this year. So I got him in one league yet, and I'm trying to get rid of him. So that's my situation. He's too old and too injured and he's not with Breeze anymore. So Breeze isn't going to look at him 9 out of 10 dropbacks. So I think that it's definitely time to get rid of him if you can for almost any price, early second, third round, something like that. So we'll go from there. Jarvis Landry. I bought a team last year and he was on the IR. I immediately sold Jarvis Landry last year for a second round pick. Didn't care, didn't want him. He's done. He's been done for a while. I mean, Jarvis Landry last year scored a grand total. I mean, this is the deal with Jarvis Landry. Think about Jarvis Landry like this. At best, he's going to be the third wide receiver option. Probably the fourth best receiving option because Kamara is going to be there, right? So with that being said, what do you think his numbers are going to look like? Now think about this. Jarvis Landry scored 115 points last year. He missed week 15, 11, and 12. And, oh no, where the heck is he? He missed week 15, and then he missed weeks 3 through 5. Somebody scored 115 points. Who was the number one wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns last year? Wasn't it Jarvis Landry? So you're talking like 115 points, missing 4 games, versus being the number 3 wide receiver, probably the 4th best receiving option on probably a better throwing offense. But is he going to get back to 115 points even? Not a fan. We'll just say I'm not a fan. What else do they got? Traquan Smith. I had him in emergency roles last year, and he did absolutely nothing, although he had absolutely no quarterback help. But I don't foresee him being anything because he's the 4th wide receiver. General rule of thumb, if you're a 4th wide receiver, I don't want you unless you're a rookie. Or a second-year player that was hurt or something like that. I mean, if you're going to be the 4th wide receiver, there's not much upside for you. You have to have a couple injuries. Now, in this scenario, right, Olave could not be what everybody thinks that he is the first year. Landry could be as bad as everybody expects, and Traquan Smith could get a shot, and he could wind up being the preferred target. That's a lot of coulds, woulds, maybes, ifs, and if that happens, I'll say, well, I missed that, and I didn't see it, and I don't care. Just won't care. So really, that's pretty much the size of it. That's all I think I have left for them. And so we can move on from the New Orleans Saints. Are they going back to the Aints? That is the question, right? So let's get into here. Let's find the next team on the list, which is the Atlanta Falcons. And oh my word. Some do's and don'ts on the Falcons roster, right? 2 guys you obviously do. Landry, you do. Pitts, you do. So we like those guys, right? Because they're young, their profile, they're not going to be with a good quarterback. So if you're hopefully in a productive struggle mode with those guys, because they're not going to get good quarterback play. If you don't have good quarterback play, you're not going to put up massive numbers. Are they relatively the only throwing options in the team? Yeah. But look what Matt Ryan could do with only those guys in this offense. What do you think Mariota's going to do? It had Russell Gage and Pitts last year. I mean, it's going to be worse. It's just flat out going to be worse. Mariota, don't touch him with a 10-foot pole. He should be on the waiver wire. He should be a streaming guy, and he should be on 5 teams because they have quarterback issues on a bye week. That should be the only time you ever pick up Mariota. So I think we've kind of covered the tight ends because you want Pitts or whatever. Cordero Patterson, 31 years old, never was. I mean, I love the talent. Big Vikings fan. I was happy when they drafted him. I obviously think that they did not use him right because I thought that he was coming in and being a wide receiver and a Percy Harvin mold, which is what he obviously should have been. But he's 31 years old. He finally had his breakout year. What does he have left in the gas tank? He may be a Hall of Fame kick returner, Hall of Fame talent, but he's probably not going to be a difference maker in Dynasty this year. Excuse me. Let's see here. By the time you got too close to the playoffs, the second half of the season, he missed game 11, had 27 in week 12, but week 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17, 12, 13, 4, 8, and 7. I think that's more of a trend than a mirage. Excuse me one second. Apologize, talking too much. I need somebody else on this channel to talk with me so I can take a break from talking. I'm talking too much. So let's get into that. Okay, so basically all we have left for Atlanta is the wide receivers. I know we talked a little bit about London, and you want him, and he's going to hold his value because of the situation in Atlanta. Even if he doesn't put up great numbers, if he puts up great numbers, then it'll be even better, right? Oh, wow. That was out of the blue. Woo! Oh, man, got something. Going to have to hurry this up. Basically, you don't want anybody else on the roster. Let's just say that. I mean, Brian Edwards, Calvin Ridley's suspended. I picked him up for 3-7 in one league, and then I'm going to have to try and hang on to him. Auden Tate, there's really nothing there other than that for wide receivers. So that's that. Let's get to the last team here, the Carolina Panthers, with the big Baker Mayfield trade, which nobody likes, or nobody should like maybe. I don't know that that's a real needle mover, him versus Darnold, but it is what it is. People have been talking about Baker Mayfield, don't want a share of him. Baker Mayfield might help DJ Moore because DJ Moore might score more than 4 touchdowns. DJ Moore was pretty sneaky last year. I thought he scored 138 points. This is telling me 120 or 221. Not 238. So be that as it may, DJ Moore had a sneaky year, I think, last year that people are undervaluing him just because he didn't get any touchdowns. With a bad offensive line, with a bad quarterback play, without Christian McCaffrey most of the year, with what he did as a number 1 wide receiver, I think that was pretty good because he was in a terrible situation. Sam Darnold, I do think that there's a 50-50 chance, or better than a 50-50 chance, that he beats out Baker Mayfield. If Sam Darnold has time, I still believe in him a little bit. It's vanishing quickly, though. Again, with Christian McCaffrey, is he going to stay healthy? Now, that's the biggest thing of that. He's starting to get long in the tooth. But the biggest thing with the running back situation is who's actually the backup. Is it Chuba or is it Foreman? I tend to believe that it's going to be Chuba. I think that with Chuba's performance, and usually guys take a step up at the second year, I think Chuba will do that. Foreman, I think that they wanted him because he can spell both. He's a good backup insurance policy. In case McCaffrey goes down, then you still have 2 guys, right? But worst case scenario with Foreman, they didn't pay him a lot of money. He is a goal line type running back. He's a between the 20s type running back, and he's a short yardage running back. If you think that you're good, if you think you got the defense, if you think you can solve your wide receiver or your issue at quarterback, it's a great pickup. As far as football wise, not necessarily fantasy wise, but football wise. So you think about it that way, it makes sense, and that's why I think that Chuba is going to wind up being the primary backup. And we'll see if that's even needed, because if McCaffrey is McCaffrey of old, you're not going to see much of those other guys anyways, except for in junk time and junk situations. I guess the only other guy that really stands out to me on the roster here is Robbie Anderson. Don't touch him with a 10-foot pole. I won't. I haven't for years. I messed with him early in his career, and he always disappointed me. He was the guy that would go off when I didn't have him in, and if I'd stick him in for 5 weeks, and he would do crap. And he's back to doing that kind of thing. Almost got to trust in him 2 years ago at the beginning of the year, and then just nothing, absolutely nothing for almost a year and a half, over a year and a half, right? So don't touch Robbie Anderson. The one guy that has the upside and the ability would be Terrace Marshall, and everybody talked about him coming out last year that he was going to be a project and you would have to wait a year on him. Now, Christian McCaffrey has been coming out and certain news sources and other players saying that he looks like a totally different player night and day. And the Panthers are saying that he's going to be a starting wide receiver, one of the starters. So does that mean Robbie Anderson's going to go to the slot, or how are they going to use him? But he's going to be in, which he wasn't in much last year. So that looks like it's going to be a player to get. Now, is he going to get 600 yards or 800 yards? We don't know yet. Is he going to be a goal line monster because he's so big? We don't know yet. But he's going to get opportunity, and that's what you like. So that's pretty much what I have, I think, for Carolina. I think I went over their tight end, Tommy Tremble. Very good prospect. Got to figure out if the quarterbacks use him. Sam Darnold would use him more than Baker Mayfield. So it's kind of pick your poison. And he was a rookie last year, so he's probably got a year or two to go before he really breaks out. So as a deep stash, yeah, maybe Tommy Tremble. So I don't hate him. Everybody else, not really worth mentioning, I don't think. Once again, like, click, subscribe. If you have a comment, if I'm saying something stupid about a player, I mean, let's have a conversation. Put it down below, and we'll go. I'm sorry for the cough. That's pretty much the wrapping up the NFC South. And so we'll just move on for the next video. Until next time, take care.